Welcome to this month's edition of Pulp, Nonfiction, the paper and packaging podcast. I'm Greg Johnson with Sustainably Fiber, and I'm here once again with my co-host, Dr. Marta Pazos. So, Marta, with the holidays season upon us and Christmas right around the corner, how's your holiday shopping coming along?
So actually, no, Greg. This is causing so much stress right now for me because I have no idea what I'm going to gift. But this year, I'm going to continue doing what I have been doing for the past few years, which is just go with more sustainable and a better for the planet way of gifting, which I know now that there is companies like the one whose founder we're interviewing today that have been able to commercialize those amazing crafts that women are doing all over the world, in especially in those developing countries.
Exactly, Marta. And what better way to explore sustainable gift ideas than with our guest today, Melissa Sevy, the founder and CEO of the Ethik Collective. Despite modern manufacturing's use of AI and robotics, handmade products are still highly cherished, not only for their overall beauty and quality, but in the case of the Ethik Collective, their story is part of the appeal too. Based in Utah, the Ethik Collective employs women from all over the world, including here in the U.S. The artists strive to better themselves economically and also help the environment by producing beautiful handcrafted items ranging from blankets and bags to jewelry and accessories and much more. Melissa, it's great seeing you again. We're really grateful for your time today. And thank you for visiting with us.
All right. Thank you for having me. This is so exciting to talk with like-minded people. So I'm so happy to be here.
Thanks so much, Melissa, for joining us today. So, tell me, what inspired you to create such a fantastic idea of a company such as Ethic? I am already a fan. I have to tell you that because this is amazing, and we definitely need more people with that kind of initiative in the world. So, what made you do this?
Thank you so much. So where this all started, in the summer of 2009, I lived in Uganda for a few months. I was working for a nonprofit there. And my background is actually in public health. So we were doing a lot of health uh, outreach to different villages and communities. And one of our initiatives was teaching people about disease prevention through hand washing with soap. And very early on, actually, in the project, I came to the realization that many of the people we were teaching these classes to could not afford soap. And so that kind of made me sit back and think, what are we doing here? And why did we come to this? Why this solution? This is not solving a problem that people have. This is not their number one problem. People need jobs. People need consistent work so that they can buy soap. And so with that perspective, myself and a couple of colleagues over the course of the summer, we got to know many of the women in the community in Uganda, bright, capable women, and many of them had the full economic burden for the home. And yet there's very few jobs for women. And so we kind of put our resources together and we started a nonprofit at the time, employing Ugandan women to make jewelry that we sold here in the US. So that was kind of our beginnings. That was a nonprofit that ran for many years and still runs today, but it was very non-profitable for many years. And but that kind of catapulted me into this artisan space where we really got to know the plight of artisans around the world. So artisan craft is actually the second largest industry employing people in the developing world, second only to agriculture. So we're talking about hundreds of millions of people, and the majority of these are women. And so this is a sector that that is very open to exploitation, because people can come in and middlemen can come and pay very little to the artisans and then make big markups. And so we kind of have built a company around working directly with artisans, ensuring fair pay, consistent work, so that they can buy soap and send their kids to school and have nutritious food. And so many of these issues associated with poverty can be helped through economic empowerment.
Absolutely. I love that idea in especially considering what you just mentioned, that so many households in developing countries fall under women's responsibilities without resources, and how much more could the economies of those countries develop if those women had that kind of income, right? The power to to develop that economy, right? Amazing.
Statistics show that in the developing world, on average, men are spending 10 to 15% of their income on their families, and women spend about 90%. And so it's a very low hanging fruit to provide employment for women, to have an effect on the family level and the community level, and really get at breaking generational cycles of poverty.
That's fantastic, Melissa. Now, I know you have a pretty robust mission statement, and one of your values, obviously, is sustainability. Could you tell us just a little bit, share with us both your professional as well as your personal view on sustainability?
Sure. So I live in Utah, and I love the outdoors, and just I grew up in southern Utah near Zion National Park, Red Rock, and now I live in northern Utah with huge mountains in the Rockies, and I love this, and I want to preserve the beauty around us. And so much of that comes through thinking about how we personally can be sustainable as well as in business. So there's so much that we personally can do, but then also, I mean, the biggest perpetrators of hurting our environment are businesses. And so, yeah, I just really feel like this is this is our shot to preserve this beautiful earth that we have. And so, both personally, professionally, I'm I'm not perfect, but absolutely am trying. That's been one of uh, my New Year's resolutions each year has included some more sustainable things I can personally do. Um, and then as a business, we're working on things that we can do to continually move towards better options.
So yeah, I mean, I totally agree with what you mean, and I like to also point out the fact that businesses are not just run by themselves, right? Who is truly responsible for those businesses causing that damage? But people. So it really starts with all of us, right? Like the responsibility must be shared. This is something that I always try to communicate to everybody. It's not just the CPG's fault that we are causing all this. It's all of us. I understand that some of the artists that you employ, or who's they do a lot of the work that you can commercialize under ethic, are it used to be sex workers, right? So how do you manage to pull them out of there, and what brought you to do that, right? To disentangle such a complex and sometimes dangerous, right, types of network.
Yeah. So how we work generally is that we connect in with established artisan groups. And so this is a sector that there are a lot of women in, that have been caught in enslaved in sex trafficking, and there are really great organizations in their own countries that are doing it the right way. And so as you ask, like, how do we work with them? first of all, we get out of the way to allow them to do their work. So, for example, one organization that we work with in Nepal was started by a local woman there who had lived on the streets as a teenager, and she got to know the plight of girls and women in her country, and she started this shelter, and she works closely um, with government officials, with police officers, and she knows who she can trust in each of those. And so I think sometimes when foreign entities come in, if they drop in and sometimes do these really extravagant sting operations as foreigners, it's much less effective than those who are actually working on the ground, who know the situation and know the partners that can really work to holistically bring these women and girls to hope and healing. And so this particular organization, Raksha Nepal, they have actually several programs that help that train women to have other sources of income, so that they, even after going through a rehabilitation program, and then when they're turned over on their own and don't have skills, what do they know than the work that they had before? And so they have a really robust program, and one of them is a sewing and a tailoring training program. And so over the past few years, we've worked with their program to sew several different types of bags that we've then connected to conscious customers in the US. And that's been a really beautiful program. And how they've structured it is that fair pay goes to the artisans that make it, and then a portion goes to support the shelter. And so a couple of years ago, we did a large project with over 100,000 bags, and these were just like small drawstring bags that and these are women that have graduated from the program, and so they were in 6 villages in the surrounding area, and they would sew them, and then they would all gather them into Kathmandu for quality control. And that order alone was able to provide employment for over 100 women, and it supported their shelter for over a year, paid all the expenses for their shelter. And so it was able to have that dual impact, which was really, really beautiful, and empowering. These women are making money, and so they can support their families in a dignified way. And so we've really loved that partnership.
Yeah, it's actually, this is one thing that I constantly tell everybody. No matter how much I know that we are still not in an equal society, even in developed countries, I cannot be thankful enough for the fact that I can actually make my own money, right? I always, always, always tell girls, get an education, get your own money, because those are the things that nobody's going to take away from you. Well, the money, yes, but the education and the training, that's for you to keep always, right?
Yeah,
Having skills, having the ability of making your own money.
absolutely.
It's just priceless.
Another group that we work with is right here in Salt Lake City, is a group of Afghan refugee women, and all of them actually learned sewing in their home country and are very skilled seamstresses. And so we did a project with them over the past year, and the name of their organization, which they came up with, we just started working with them at their very beginning. So we were kind of we've been working together with them to stand up this group of 26 women. But the title they chose, kind of in connection with what you were just saying, their group is called Free Women. And I just love that through economic empowerment, they are free. And even if some of them, you know, even in their marriages, there may still be um, barriers for their freedom, even in this country. But when they can have money that they made, there is this source of freedom. And it's really fun to hear them, what they're buying with the money that they made, and um, for their families, for themselves, being able to pamper themselves a little bit, and but then also investing in sewing machines so they can do more of these orders. And so I just really love that. It's freedom comes through, particularly for women that have been in societies that they don't have a lot of choice over their lives, um, through having access to employment that can break a lot of those barriers.
Oh, that's tremendous work that you're doing, Melissa. Melissa, on another note, I know you're somewhat familiar with Sustana fiber and our recycled pulp that's used in all kinds of sustainable food and beverage packaging, from paper cups and carry-out containers to bags and even microwavable sleeves. But I know I mentioned it earlier. In terms of sustainability for what you're doing at the Ethik Collective, I know you've taken great interest in taking a look at local materials, trying to remove any types of chemical processing that goes on in some of the goods that are made for you. Could you describe for our audience a little bit about how you've done that in terms of trying to help the environment by being particular about what goes into your products?
Absolutely. So what's really cool about indigenous craft is it's typically made from the earth. Uh, but the problem can be when, deforestation is happening, and when resources are not managed. And so we, for anything that's made from a natural fiber, we ensure that there are all of the certifications from the local government, the Ministry of Agriculture, that it is not, propagating deforestation, or land degradation, and so we ensure that. But then also, many of these materials are very interesting. One material that we use in Uganda, and we actually use this for our packaging, for the majority of our jewelry that comes out of Uganda. It's called bark cloth, and it's made from the bark of the matuba tree, and it's a very traditional material that was worn by the royalty of the Buganda tribe, that was the ruling tribe of Uganda. And so the tree is not harmed in the removal of the bark. So they remove the bark, boil it, lay it out in the sun for 1 to 2 months, and it becomes this kind of, it feels like, people think it's leather, but it is just tree bark. And so it's a really cool material that we use and make little pouches that the jewelry goes inside. And so that's kind of a really sustainable packaging option that we've done there. And another example is our work with olive wood workers in Palestine. So the olive tree is very important to that region of the world, and it's actually a symbol of peace, which that people on all sides of the conflict are ultimately hoping for. And these woodworkers, they the wood that is used, so one of our more popular items is like cutting boards or olive wood spoons, and they're actually not allowed to cut down olive trees. So it's only the branches that have been cut off for pruning, or when a tree dies. So some of these trees are over 1,000 years old. And so, yeah, so I mean, just think about the history that so many world religions are tied into that area of the world, and these trees have lived through all of it, or so much of it. Yeah, so beautiful product that people love, and it has a really special story of sustainability and of empowering a group of people that have lived through so much conflict.
Yeah. Oh, I love those packaging ideas. And you know what? I'm actually from Spain. I'm from the north, but I love the landscape of the olive trees, when it's like these like very green circles in that very red dirt, right? It's just so beautiful. I'm from the opposite side, and definitely we don't have those, but I do know the importance of olive trees. That's for sure. So tell us, what do you think, paper plastic?
We strive to go for paper options for packaging whenever we can. Um, yeah, so and then if we can go from even more local materials, we go for that. So yeah, paper's what
How
we
about
go for.
yourself in your own life? Not just for ethic,
Oh, sure.
um, the business, but for your own life, what it is that you normally
Yeah,
prefer.
yeah. I opt for paper when I can, and um, uh, have learned a lot about recycling, and I think I used to way over recycle, and learning what actually can be recycled and what can't. And so that's helped me to change my habits to actually know, um, actually this type of plastic is not recyclable. So avoiding that has been something I've been working on. Absolutely.
Yeah, and unfortunately, this is something that I keep telling people. Unfortunately, the fact that a certain amount of plastic makes it to the material recovery facility doesn't mean that it's going to make it all the way and it's going to be sold and therefore recycled. A lot of it stops right there. So the numbers tell us that a certain amount of plastic gets recycled, but that's not true. A certain amount of plastic gets collected. In on the other side of the coin, we have paper, which actually has the ability of have so much value after so many cycles of being recycled. So it is definitely an advantage, not to mention the fact that it's a lot easier to recycle it,
Mm.
right?
Well, you're right, Martin. You can recycle paper up to about 7 times too.
Or more,
Um,
right? Like
yeah,
it really depends. Like I think that that's one of those things where we are in the side of caution of saying, yeah, we can recycle it like 7 times, but you can probably do a lot more than that, especially when it's going to go to corrugated,
when
where
it's
there's like
commingled,
so many layers, right? That
for sure.
you will keep the sturdiness because of the construction, even though the paper itself has already lost some of its mechanical strength, right?
Mm.
Exactly. Now, Melissa, we're all way too familiar now with shipping delays across the world. Um, how does that impact the Ethic Collective in terms of transportation, in terms of deliveries these days, of course, with the holidays upon us? And what are you doing to sort of mitigate some of those challenges and overcome those delivery delays?
Hmm. I was just talking about this with my team, and it kind of seems like 2021 international logistics are kind of similar to 2020. I mean, they're more similar than we hoped. We just we just are expecting it. And so whereas last year we were just blindsided, and so we had some huge shipments that were stuck in port, were several weeks over deadline. Um, we had a large shipment coming out of Uganda that ended up being about 5 times what we had, it cost about 5 times what we had projected and budgeted for. So we just lost thousands of dollars on that order. Yeah. So, and then even just raw materials was difficult because governments were shut down. And so even procuring things, and as we all know, I mean, just materials that you would not have even expected would be affected. We had a large order of brass earrings in India, and they couldn't get the brass. And yeah, it affects every part of the supply chain, right? And we definitely felt that. And luckily, we had some really wonderful partners, our customers that understood, and we put our heads together to figure out what we could do to get partial shipments so they could launch their products. And um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, in really beautiful ways. I appreciated that customers, in a way that I think in another year would not have had the grace, but we just were all kind of like, we're in this together. So it turned out we got through. Yeah.
Yeah, and you certainly learned something, right? While at it.
Yes. I mean, basically, we've just learned for this year. You asked how to mitigate these things. So much of it is out of our hands, and so we just, like, our holiday orders have been coming in that we just got projects going way in advance, knowing that the delays could be there. So we actually like made deadlines this year because we were, gave ourselves several weeks of extra time.
Good.
Yeah.
That's great.
Again, lessons learned. So you're currently commercializing products, right, made by women that are coming from several different countries, including the US, right? So how does your recruiting process go? How do you choose which artists you're going to ask them to make the product and ship it and commercialize it? Tell us some about that.
Sure. In the beginning, it was groups that I had met while living abroad. So I'd spent probably a couple of years living in Uganda and East Africa, so getting to know groups there. That's where we got to know Rwandan basket weavers, and then have spent time living in Morocco, in India, and so actually was able to meet groups in person and see their work and see their commitment to social impact within their communities. And now, as we're scaling this model, and actually, it was a very interesting result of COVID travel restrictions. We could not travel to monitor some of these really large projects. And and it forced us to just, be in touch with our artisans and really lean on the leadership in country. And they did great without us. And that was amazing. Like we we said, oh wow, we put way too much stock in our own value of being there. They know what they're doing way more than we do, and so we really manage the a lot of the international logistics details and on the front end the design and communication with the customer, but they've done amazing at really being able to manage really large orders, and many of them it was the largest orders they'd ever had in COVID that we were able to connect them with, which was really special in that a lot of times artisans, a big portion of their um, of their ability to sell is to tourists. So tourism supports their handcraft, and with that completely obliterated, we were able to do some really large orders um, that turned out to be really, really great projects.
That's great. It's so good to hear that you could compensate, like that loss of their income due to the fact that people were not going there and going to their flea markets, right? So
Yep.
you could compensate for that. And
You're in about 7 countries now, is that correct?
We actually are in around 15, and that's rising.
15.
Wow. We have several groups that are kind of in the queue to go through our vetting process. And actually, Marta, you'd asked about like how we onboard groups. So we've developed a vetting process, and so we've all heard of fair trade, fair trade certification. That's something that has become especially widespread with coffee and chocolate. And that particular certification is a pretty high bar. And a lot of times family farms will have to sell out to a larger owner to be able to have the resources to get fair trade certified. And also the handcraft industry doesn't quite fit into fair trade. Fair trade is more focused on farms and four-walled factories, whereas artisans are a lot of times doing home work from home, or small community groups. And so we've built out a vetting system that's more of a stepped approach, that an artisan group initially they just do some kind of basic reporting on their practices, so ensuring that they're not employing children, that they're paying a fair wage, that they have safe working conditions, having them report on what kind of chemicals they're using, where they're sourcing their materials from, etc. So it's initially reporting, and they can start working with us and start getting orders with the agreement that they'll continue working for the next levels. So after reporting, then we kind of look at what they've reported and develop specific trainings or tools that they need to be able to strengthen those areas that they might be weak in, and then turn those into policies within their organizations. And so if they had to do all of that at once, it would be very difficult for them to get to that level. But that we kind of have this stepped approach, as long as they're like making progress towards these practices, then they can continue being within our network. And so, but we meet them through all different ways now. There are a lot of like handmade artisan networks that we work through, to find artisan groups, and then kind of have them come through this system. And so we're really working on making that system so that we can scale and really become a go-to platform for an artisan. We never have an exclusivity clause that they can only work with us. We encourage them to have as many outlets for selling their goods as possible. But we're just one way that they can really connect with bigger buyers. And so we hope that not only through working with us, not only will they have these orders, but that we can build their capacity to be able to work with, Western buyers, which some of them, it's their first time doing that when they work with us. And so we have a big element, a core element of our work is capacity building for these groups.
Amazing. You touched on this just a little bit earlier, Melissa. What would you say in your day-to-day life is something that you do for the environment that's sustainably related that you're proud of?
This is something I'm working on. And I think that's, this is something I've been focusing on, is just thinking of the fast fashion industry. And there's one thing like vetting out companies that do have good practices in their sourcing. But then also just like, how can so to get personal, I'm 6 months pregnant right now, and thank you. And I just have been frustrated because I shouldn't have to buy maternity clothes. This is a short-term run of wearing clothes meant for my changed body, and so I reached out to friends to see like, hey, have any of you kept your maternity clothes? I just can't fit into anything, and I don't want to go and support fast fashion when this is a short-term need. And so have had a great response that way. But in the beginning, I was looking for online marketplaces that might have used clothing and maternity clothing, and was coming up short. It was very difficult to find. It was just through more person-to-person interactions I was able to find that. And yeah, it's not about like, for me, it's not about like not spending money. It's about like, I don't need to buy another. I don't need to create unnecessary clothing in the system, knowing that so much of it goes into into landfills and everything. So that's one thing I've been thinking about, is sustainability in clothing.
That's interesting.
Yeah, you know what? I'm just like listening to you thinking, you would think that maternity clothing would be the one that you need the most used out, right? Because it's like, how, like you said, you're not going to wear it a long time, or you shouldn't. Maybe some people keep it for the next one, which would make sense, right? But looking at the birth rate of developed countries, it may not be, it's normally not the case, right? Yeah. If you use it twice in your life, then that might be just like as much as you get out of it. So I would think that there's definitely a need for used maternity clothes outlets, right?
Who's gonna start that? Who's gonna start that startup? The maternity clothes exchange. Maybe that'll be my next one.
That's actually a great idea. It's not something that really touches me very close because I don't have children and I won't have children. But I see definitely the value and the need for it. You know what? Just a little personal story here. 3 years ago, my New Year's resolution was, I'm not gonna buy any piece of clothing because I was getting sick with myself with how many clothes I had.
Hmm.
And I realized that if I wanted something that I had seen at a magazine or a window or something like that, I would have something exactly the same in some shape or form, like hanging in my closet or in a shoebox, right? So I decided not to. I decided to do it for 6 months, and I am up in the third year already. The only time I bought clothes recently was because Delta lost my luggage. So I am, and obviously, and one thing that I do buy still is underwear and running shoes. I mean, that I'm not gonna be stupid with.
That's
You
pretty
have
good.
to, right?
That's impressive.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah,
awesome.
Of
yeah. No,
course.
I was so proud. I keep telling that story because I am so proud of myself with it.
Yeah, on another side story here, years ago they actually used to have paper clothing, and one of the airlines, U.S. Airlines, actually experimented with flight attendants having clothing made out of paper. Their uniforms were made out of paper, a paper material. And I'm wondering, Melissa, maybe with that bark that you
Oh
mentioned
yeah.
that you use for bark bags,
Uh-huh.
I'm wondering if that could be transformed into a maternity dress or something.
Oh, okay.
Possibly.
We're bringing it all together here.
Innovation,
You're
Yes.
right,
starting a
Marta?
lot of businesses.
I love it.
I do have a paper bag, like a handbag made of paper that
There you
somebody
go.
recently gave to me. Yeah, just like one of those little, like a purse that you can like bring the stuff that gets lost in your bigger tote, right? Kind of like that. I love it. It's fantastic.
You just don't take it out in the
Um,
Atlanta rain.
Well, it is treated, so
Right.
it's waxed.
Oh,
It
okay,
has like
okay.
the treatment and all of that. But
Oh,
but yeah, no, but
And all
that's
weather
a good
bag.
point. You don't even have to bring it in the rain; just bring it outside, and the humidity will get to it. So now that we're actually talking about like buying and shopping, and can you tell us what would be like one of the favorite gifts that people get from Ethic and give to other people or to themselves, right? I give to myself all the time too. And on top of that, which ones would you say that not they're not just the most popular with the people, but also what are the ones that you feel that you're contributing the most to lower carbon footprint and do good things for the environment?
So we have beautiful woven baskets from Rwanda, and they actually when you look at them, so they're, baskets are pretty general around the world. Indigenous cultures were making baskets for, thousands of years. The baskets from Rwanda, I think, are among the most beautiful, and they use sisal. So it's called sisal fibers, and it's actually from the agave leaves. So they and this actually was a government program after the Rwandan genocide, and they did this mass planting of agave plants to uh, to create jobs for women, because these are traditional baskets that they just like wanted to scale up to provide work for so many widows that came out of that war. And so they take these large leaves and um, kind of with a wood tool scrape away the green, and it leaves just the strings, and those are then dyed and used, and they look like thread, like they're shiny and they're really beautiful. And so that's a really beautiful story of hope and healing, because people from both sides of that conflict have come together into these weaving groups. Like they are all mixed together, and you're not allowed to be identified by those differing tribes. But when I was there a few years ago on a big project, um, it was beautiful to meet people, and they were happy and friendly, and knowing that anybody over the age of, anybody in their 20s had lived through that just devastation, and now they've come together with people that were on the other side, and they're in these cooperatives making baskets that have very sustainable component. So those are really a popular item. anything olive wood, people just love, and I've kind of talked about that. Um, we work with a group in Vietnam that makes stoneware, mugs, plates, and that's a really that's where stoneware began. So they have shards that are, hundreds of years old, um, where they had that technology to make that from the earth, and so that's a really beautiful one. Um, yeah, our Ugandan artisans in the beginning were sourcing a lot of their beads within the country, but they were all coming from China, and we've moved away from that. So like small glass beads, pretty much they all come from China, no matter like where in the world they're being beaded. And so we've moved to clay that's locally mined, um, and 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 there's sustainable regulations around the taking of that from the earth, that clay. But now they're making their own beads, and so that's been a really cool transition to see. So that's a few of the things.
That's great. Yeah. I'm adding things to my list, that
That'll
I
be
need
on
to
your
check out.
holiday shopping list, Marta.
Yeah, or just, stuff for myself, like I said. That those
Sure.
baskets sound amazing. I always have like a bunch of stuff lying all over the place. So when I'm putting it in one of those baskets, certainly sounds like a much better idea than the boxes that I have them in right now.
Well, we've covered a lot today, Melissa, and as we wrap up, just a quick two-part question. Number one, I'd love for you to just share, if you could, any new ideas on the horizon, new products that you've got for the Ethik Collective. And two, if you could let our audience know how to contact you and your organization.
Sure. So we just launched, just the last few weeks, a corporate gifting application where, and by the way, I don't know if I've kind of made this clear. We on our marketplace, we actually don't sell to individual customers. We only do wholesale for companies. Generally, companies are buying gifts for their employees, and so we have like minimum quantities of 50 or up from there. But these companies can choose different items from around the world to put into a gift box that we then have packaged, and then I'll give you an example of one of our holiday gifting that we're doing for a venture capital firm. So they chose out a cashmere scarf made by people with disabilities in Nepal, and a stoneware mug made in Vietnam, and cacao, like brewing cacao that comes from Ecuador. And so it has this, each item has a story. And so we've created a card that will have a photo of each, of an artisan representing each group, and a little bit about the story behind the product. And then on the other side is their holiday message. And that's, we've did some of these gift boxes last year, and we had companies say, we give gifts every year and we've never actually had anybody respond and say something about them, but people were like, this is so cool. When one company that was focused on women's issues, they gave that out, and we had items that were specifically only made by women. And so their customers were so excited, like, this is you living your values. And the thing is, companies don't have to donate a penny. This is budgets they already have. So it's just choosing to go from something that you may not know the sourcing of, or that has little meaning, to something that has a lot of meaning and has impact. And so that kind of gift box application is something that has been really fun, and it's a way that most companies can get involved. So companies that may not have products, the main work that we have been doing over the last couple of years is creating product lines for companies, so they can like sell a handmade item that goes along with their whatever else they're selling. So if we're creating baskets that they then put their, skincare products in, and so it comes with that Rwandan story, or an oil diffusing bracelet for a company that sells essential oils. So things that can go along with their products and give more meaning. We do that. But this gifting, most companies gift. And so that's been a really fun way to be able to collaborate and let many companies get involved. And so that's been really fun. So that was your first question. And then,
right.
Oh, and then how to get in contact with us. So we're Ethik Collective. That's ETHIK. So like ethics, but with a K instead of a C. Ethik Collective. We're ethiccollective.com, Instagram, Ethik Collective. Find us on all the social medias. And yeah, that's where we are.
And what if we want to buy something, or we want to get something from you? Is there any other way besides? Unfortunately, I haven't worked for any company that seems to have any ethics in their code. So
just by knowing me, I've got a hookup. So
all right,
we'll chat.
There you go.
Good enough. That would be great. No, I really want to this year make a, I'm one of those also that the same commitment that I did for myself, I'm doing it for others. So I either don't gift, I maybe get, a good bottle of wine sometimes, or actually make something, because I am a crafter myself. So lately they normally get some whatever cosmetics I'm working on right now.
Oh,
so.
Awesome. Love it.
Yeah. I'll put you on the list.
Oh, great.
Well, Melissa, we have loved having you. It's really been a pleasure. You have such an inspirational company, the Ethik Collective. I'm sure our audience has been captivated by you and the story of your amazing artists. But we really are grateful once again for your time, and happy holidays to you. Merry Christmas and all that. And congratulations on your new baby, your upcoming baby too.
Thank you. I have my business baby and my human baby. So
right.
all the things.
And they're all very demanding, I'm sure. Well, you don't know about the human one, but brace yourself, right? That's what they say.
All right. Thanks again, Melissa.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been wonderful talking with you.
Thank you. I am so deeply touched by your story. Thank you.